everybody, and welcome to the Spartan Sports Report here on TV3. It's August. Basketball's not right around the corner, but we're welcoming the basketball coach of CHS, Gary Brown, to tonight's show. Thanks, Gary, for coming.
Good to be here, Fran. Thank you, Sam.
I think Sam knows how many days it is until basketball.
As of this taping here on Monday night, it's 93 days until we open up against Union County. And, not that anyone's counting.
Thanks for keeping me up to date.
A few things have to happen, though, before that. For instance, today at CHS, the sports, on Monday, the junior varsity football will be at Union County, and the freshman football will be playing at Richmond. Varsity and junior varsity volleyball are at Anderson. The girls' varsity soccer team is at Delta. Varsity and junior varsity boys soccer at Franklin County. So a busy Monday. On Tuesday, the boys soccer varsity and junior varsity teams will be home to East Central. The varsity and junior varsity volleyball at South Dearborn. Girls golf will be home to Rushville on Tuesday. Wednesday, the boys tennis team travels to Richmond. And on Thursday, it will be the girls golf at Centerville. Varsity and junior varsity volleyball at home to Greensburg. Boys tennis home to Cambridge City. On Friday, it'll be Spartan football at Franklin County. And on Saturday, both boys and girls soccer teams will be at Union County. The cross-country team will be taking part in a Rushville Invitational. Girls golf at New Palestine. Varsity and junior varsity volleyball home to Batesville. Busy schedule.
Very busy week, and the good news is the weather report is better for this week than it was a week ago.
Absolutely. In the middle school, will be volleyball at Greensburg on Tuesday, at Seton Catholic on Thursday, and football will be Wednesday at Union County. Sam, you've got the first question for the coach.
What have you been doing all summer, Coach?
We had our normal, typical June where we met 3 days a week, and we basically practiced, worked out, and then we would try to play 1 day a week with the kids at the different levels, varsity, JV, and we did a lot with our middle school kids as well. We probably played about 20 games with those kids and practiced a little bit. And they had a 2-week camp right at the end of the school year. So we do quite a bit with our incoming 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. And then, like I said, our varsity JV guys, they practice 3 times a week. And I think each of them played 4 or 5 days. It may have been more than one game. As a matter of fact, most of the time it was more than one game when we went out and played. Otherwise, it's not quite, not worth your time to travel and play just one game. We try to get 2, 3, 4 games in a time. So had a decent summer. It's a typical summer. We didn't have everybody all the time, but had some good performances. And, some of these kids that played on our JV last year were playing up, and we got to look at them. And they got to play with some of the other kids that were varsity players last year. And, we're still trying to figure some things out as coaches, who's going to play, and we'll determine that here in October, November, December, January, February, right up to the sectional, who's going to play. But it's still wide open, some of our spots. I mean, obviously we returned Bo Isaacs and Grant Smith and Garrett Silcott from our starting lineup. And then Noah Belt was usually our first sub off the bench, and Dalton Huffman gave us minutes off the bench. But then after those 5, there's a lot of kids competing for starting and or playing time.
And having won a sectional first time in almost 2 decades, certainly brought a lot of enthusiasm to the team and to the community. But does that carry over into the younger kids, the ones maybe that are coming up, that they want to be a part of something special?
You would think that it would. We had really good numbers in our camp, both our elementary and our middle school camp, but we've had pretty decent numbers. There might have been a slight, uptick in the number of kids that attended camp, and maybe it was due to the success that the varsity had this past season. But, I think probably, to answer your question, yeah, I think it normally does increase the enthusiasm. I know it was a lot of fun around here last year for everybody. People directly involved with the program, and the fans in our community, and people like yourself were attending the games, and you're probably directly involved. But I just think it was a lot of fun. Hadn't seen that in a while around here, but it was really neat to be a part of it. Mm-hmm. And I think the memories that were created last year, those kids will remember those. for the rest of their lives.
Oh, absolutely. Winning a sectional is, and we've talked about it, how much more difficult it was, is now than it was 20 years ago. It's like almost like winning a semi-state, and to go to Southport and compete, and I thought we competed well against them on their floor. Break here or there, things could have been different. I certainly would have liked to have played that night game. I think we'd have had a good chance at that.
Yeah, well, I think we would have based on how it turned out. You know, the thing for me as a coach that helps keep it tempered, and you know what's in the past is in the past, and we're looking to the future. Is there's been a recent publication out, and I think we were talking about it off air here, but I think we're picked 4th in the sectional again this year, and I think that's about where we were picked last year. So you know, what we did in the past is in the past, and we can't dwell on that, whether it was good or bad. If we want to have that same opportunity this next year, then we need to do all those right things that put us in a position last year to compete, which we have for the last 2 years actually, because we were the sectional runner-up 2 years ago, and then last year we got it done. And if we want to be in that same position this year, then you know we need to do some of those same things, and we can't rest on our laurels, so to speak.
And back-to-back conference champions, undefeated this past year. That's quite an accomplishment in itself.
You know, we've got an outstanding basketball conference in the Eastern Indiana Athletic Conference. Great coaches. To do that back-to-back is, I mean, I think it speaks volumes about our kids. And, you know, good coaches are good because they've got good players. There's no secrets to that. We've had good kids, and, you know, not always the most talented kids, but we've had kids that have bought into what we're trying to do and played as a team and played together and cared about one another. And I think that's why we've had the success that we've had.
Absolutely.
Grant Smith did well this summer in playing in, was it an all-star game, Coach?
He did. He played in an all-star game up in Newcastle. Actually was the Mental Attitude Award recipient in that game. And then, you know, he played AAU, which a lot of our kids played, but he played on one of the better teams and had a lot of good exposure. I think they went, if I remember, went to Las Vegas, and you know, you probably remember Frank Kendrick. I think he played a little bit for Frank Kendrick and Frank's son over the summer, and so he had some good coaching and good experiences, and he played with some really good players and against some really good players as well. He picked up a couple of NAI scholarship offers this summer. So, you know, he's got some things he needs to decide where he wants to go to school at, and you know, hopefully that won't serve as a distraction, and he'll, you know, figure that out. And, you know, it's, if you haven't been down that road before, you know, you got to figure out school-wise first, and then if it's a good fit for you basketball, but I think it has to be a good fit for you academically first and foremost, and then if you can get your school paid for, which it's full ride. It's not Division I, it's NAI basketball, but it's a great level of basketball. Zach Miller played that level, and one of the schools is in that conference. The other one's not, but they're in a similar type conference. You know, you want to make sure it's a good academic fit first, and then basketball-wise, it's a good fit, and then, you know, go and play for free.
And one of your seniors signed with the college, Tyler Billups.
Yeah, Tyler is going to go to Manchester. He is going to continue his education and athletics up there to play basketball for the Spartans of Manchester. And we're happy and excited for him, and hope he goes out and represents us well. And I saw him tonight, and I told him I was looking for their schedule online so I can figure out when we can go watch them. They're in the same conference as Anderson and Earlham, Franklin, Hanover. You know, Hanover not quite as close, but those other three schools are all, you know, an hour away approximately. Maybe just a little bit more than that. So an opportunity for us to get up and see him and maybe take some of the kids and watch him play.
Last Friday night, the Spartans played football. They opened their season with Richmond. They opened with Richmond, a tough team. A lot of teams do not open with a strong team, but the Spartans do. They quickly find what's good and what's not so good. They came away with outscoring, losing 27-0 to Richmond. But all in all, for a first game, I thought very even play in the first quarter, it seems. Richmond scored finally toward the end of the first half, 3 minutes and 3 seconds, I think, remaining when they pushed a touchdown in. So 7-0 at halftime. Spartans didn't look very good in the second half. Let them score 3 more times in the ball game and lost. But all in all, what was your impression of this? I thought as a first game, very few mistakes in the game, very few penalties called, although there were some costly fumbles, I thought.
Well, if you're asking me what my take on the game is, first of all, I would say that it's not where you start, but it's where you finish at, and I think that's important for the players. I know the coaches understand that, but it's important for the players to understand that. And I, from personal experience, I've been there and done that. But you just have to stay positive and work hard. Good things eventually will happen for you and to you, and that doesn't always mean you win, but you start competing and being in a position to win those games, which they were for half.
Yes.
Only down one score, and had they got that score early, then who knows about our spirits and creating a little bit of doubt in Richmond's mind, and it might be 7-0 Spartans at halftime, or at least at the very worst tied up at halftime. And I don't know if the kids got tired. I'm not in the locker room, if they got a little fatigued in the second half. Some mental miscues or fumbles and some things like that I don't think aided their cause in the second half. But it's just, and all coaches know this, it's about, as I mentioned, you've got to have good players make coaches look good, and then it's about, eliminating those mistakes and executing out there. And I'm sure, I didn't watch the tape afterwards, but I'm sure Coach Kelly has, and he's found a lot of things that they can do in practice this week to improve upon and get better for the next game. And that's what it's about, is just growth and improvement throughout the course of the season, and, putting kids in situations where they can be successful in positions.
We have some video from the ball game. Let's look at it right now. It's from our coverage, TV3. Team to run onto the field in the smoke. Spartans in the red jerseys.
Able to move the ball pretty well there, especially in that first quarter. I believe they had 4 or 5 first downs. But man, this is looking pretty good. But Coach mentioned that turnover, fumble. I think it was first and goal at the 9, and turned it over, and from there on had a hard time getting much yardage. But,
yes.
That Coach Kelly's a motivator, and I think he will get these kids ready for this coming week. But he seems like week in and week out, he just has these kids respect, and I see enthusiasm from these kids, and they don't seem to let things get them down.
As Curry pointed out, the defense was on the field so often, so long. I think it just wore the fellows down there in the second half.
Well, I don't know how many guys play both ways. It's early in the year. Conditioning could be a factor. And then Richmond makes some plays. They had some athletic kids, and they stretch out a little bit. You miss a tackle, and before you know it, that 3-yard gain's 13 or 30.
Richmond seemed later in the game able to air that ball out some. He got some good receptions.
I thought a young man that played well on defense, they called his number a lot the other night, was the McLean kid. There's probably a hold. Somebody missed that right there. But his name got called a lot on the defensive side of the ball. I thought he was involved in a lot of plays.
As Fran said, there weren't a lot of penalties the other night, which made the game. It was a quick game.
Yes, it was.
Out of there 9:30.
Breaking up the play by Mason Sullenberger, I think, number 17 right there.
Great crowd on hand the other night. Of course, it was cheerleader night, and that brought a lot of grandma and grandpas out for the youngsters. But still, if the weather is good, we always have nice crowds at Spartan Field.
Yeah, the Spartans appreciate the support they receive. The game in its entirety will be on TV3 this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday evenings starting at 8 o'clock.
There's a breakdown. I'm sure something happened on that play, and that's why you want to have practice in between your games. So those are some of the things you can clean up. And I don't know if they were in zone or man, but obviously there was someone there was a breakdown somewhere, some way.
I think Richmond split their ends on that play, Coach, and we were covering them, and they threw it up the middle. So I think that was the problem. And we were expecting to the right or the left, I think, and they fooled us and went right over center into the arms of the receiver, and he didn't do the.
But in theory, if you're playing a zone, you've got areas that you're responsible for coverage, or if you're playing a man in the secondary, you've got a man you're responsible for. So that guy was so wide open, there was some kind of a breakdown, and that's why it's important to go back to practice, show the kids this on tape, which I'm sure Adam's doing, and make those corrections from week 1 to week 2.
Yes.
And he's got a big week here in week 2 as it's a conference game at Franklin County. We are in the large division of the conference with Franklin County, one of 4 teams and one of 3 games that we will play. So this one, while every game's important, this coming Friday when we travel down to Brookville is much more important than this game.
Here's how the other teams did in our conference. Franklin County beat Newcastle 48-18. Lawrenceburg over Indian Creek 42-21. East Central beat Campbell County, Kentucky 21-7. Batesville won over Jennings County 21-6. Greensburg lost to Shelbyville 21-6. Rushville lost to Milan 33-0. South Dearborn lost to Bedford North Lawrence 35-0.
That's Bedford North Lawrence. That's quite a trip for South Dearborn, and
yes, it is.
Yeah, and probably a larger school that they're playing there. Rushville dropped some to Milan 2 years in a row.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Milan's a good small school, football school. We think about them basketball-wise, but they've had good football
Yes.
down there, especially recently. I don't know how long that's lasted, but they've had some good football teams down there.
Of those teams mentioned, East Central, Batesville, Rushville, and South Dearborn will be playing here at Spartan Field. So I think we'll win some ball games.
Well, I think we can, and we will. Tough one this week. As we said at Franklin County, anything's possible. I think we then go to Greensburg in a couple of weeks, Labor Day weekend, and I believe that's a winnable game as well. And then I think the following week is homecoming, and
Right.
the Lions maybe come here for that, or maybe it's
Rushville.
South Dearborn first, and then.
I had a
Yeah, it
schedule
is.
here.
Yeah.
Right.
Homecoming is
South
at South
Dearborn
Dearborn,
on the 9th, and then Rushville on the 16th. Then we'll be at Indianapolis Broad Ripple on the 23rd, back home to East Central on September 30th, at Lawrenceburg October 7th, and the season ends on the 14th with Batesville here at Spartan Field.
5 home games.
Yes.
One of them behind us, but still 4 more opportunities for people to come out and see the Spartans here at home. And of course, we'd like to take a big crowd down to Franklin County on Friday night. That's just a short 20-minute drive down there, and beautiful facility. They're right across from the Brookville Dam, and really a nice place to play football.
Yeah, as you mentioned earlier, it looks like a good evening as far as weather.
I mentioned that it's a good basketball conference, but there's some good football teams in this conference as well.
It's a pretty tough one, really.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, Brookville or Franklin County really is a high-powered offense. They have been, it seems, for several years. They know where the end zone is. They can find it in a hurry.
Speaking of conference, if I may, the other
Sure.
night some of the media people from Richmond in the press box said that how much they would like for Richmond to be a part of the EIAC. I said, well, we need one more team to keep it even. And
Did they?
yeah,
Interesting.
tired of traveling to Lafayette, to Logansport, and
I can imagine.
Kokomo, and all that. Would like to be in a closer by
Sure.
conference. The problem is finding that 10th team. I would think.
Right.
And of course, everybody else would have to agree to that. But I think they would be a good fit.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of positives to adding Richmond to the conference schedule. I don't know if that's just the media people or if there's a sincerity in the schools or if they've reached out to the conference. But, yeah, they'd probably have to find someone else to keep it at an even number. And I don't know, off the top of my head, I haven't thought a whole lot about expansion. But
There's not
someone
many,
like,
really. But,
well, ideally you want someone that's a 3A, 4A school, because the rest of the conference is all 3A, 4A, right?
yes.
I was trying to think Lawrenceburg's kind of been on that line. Has
But
been
they are
2A,
3A.
but they're 3A now, and Batesville at one time was 2A, 3A, but they're 3A, so that'd be the,
That'd
the
be the tough
challenging
one.
part, finding someone else. And I don't know if, Madison, there've been some times that I've heard they want to change, or the Jennings counties. Trying to think if there's someone else down that way that talked about leaving the Hoosier Hills Conference
Hoosier Hills.
and come this way, but that's
Still a pretty good
that's
trip.
a pretty good trip, yeah.
And when you have, Newcastle just went into the Hoosier Heritage when Rushville got out, so they would be a natural fit geographically.
Yeah.
Make a lot of sense.
Or Shelbyville,
Yeah.
but Shelbyville fits well in what they have already. So.
Coach, what's some of the other teams you get to watching? The soccer teams?
If we've got basketball players involved, I try to get out and watch, or, I've got kids in class, whether they're female or males, I try to go and watch volleyball. I like that sport. There's athletes and the speed that they play at, and the jumping, the powerful, strikes of the ball. So I like watching volleyball, playing it a little bit, but I get out and watch our soccer kids, and we usually have, like last year, Chandler was involved, and before that it was Andrew Stein and some other kids. I'm trying to think. We haven't had anybody recently on the tennis team, but if there's a Spartan basketball player involved somewhere, we try to get out and support them. And then if I've got kids in class that developed a little bit of rapport with, I try to get out and see them and support them. And I enjoy some of the stuff as well.
Sure. Right. Well, it's glad that you can look at your other teams, and you encourage your players to participate in other sports, don't you?
We do. I'll be honest. I think all the kids should play 3 sports through their freshman year. And then I think the demands that we have as coaches in the off season, I think they probably need to, and not everybody. Chandler was an example last year. Chandler was on the golf team, the soccer team, and the basketball team. There's some kids that can handle all those demands and juggle their schedules, and he worked also in the summertime. But then I think after that, probably maybe 2 sports, it's probably about right in terms of sharing your time and getting the most out of them. But, I encourage all kids to be multi-sport athletes, and I know a lot of them aren't. And where that's coming from, I'm not quite sure. But at the same time, then you have to respect a young man or a young lady when they make a decision, and that's what they want to do, and this is where they want to go with their life. But because you never know. That's why I think through their freshman year, things happen, and I think opportunities present themselves or not, and you don't want to close doors or close avenues that maybe you would have excelled in something else.
And they still have to juggle that with their academics, and those are great life lessons for when they get out in the work world, for juggling other commitments as well as their work.
Well, we had both extremes last year. Tyler Billups was a 1-sport athlete, outstanding student. Chandler Graves was a 3-sport athlete and an outstanding student as well. And they both worked in the summertime, so they had to juggle their schedules and balance the academics and the athletics. And both of them were going to college, and one of them was going to continue playing basketball. So, we had examples of both kids, and both of them were successful in the paths that they chose. Chandler almost played in 3 regionals last year. He played in the soccer regional, he played in the basketball regional, and he got beat in the sectional on a tiebreaker hole, or he would have played in 3 regionals. There's not very many kids that can say that they've done that. So,
If they limit themselves to one sport, don't you urge them to be in the weight room and training and things?
if they make that choice, then we provide opportunities for them in the off season. They're not just taking it off and not doing anything. Yeah, they continue to lift. We'll start fall workouts after Labor Day. We gave them August off. This year they had July off. The couple weeks we could have worked out, and then but a lot of them do stuff on their own, or whether it's weight room, athletic development, or they're playing AAU. A lot of them are continuing to do things, and then we actually have kids that, even though we tell them we're not doing anything, they call and want to get in and get in and get shots up or get on the gun, and we'll accommodate them.
Yeah. So, Sam, how many days to basketball?
Well, it's just 93, which will be here before we know it. Coach, I know that you work with the kids at the middle school, and of course last year's 8th graders are now freshmen. You see some positives there with out of the middle school?
You know, we have a good group coming up. We actually had 2 move-ins, to my knowledge, in this year's freshman class, too. One of them's currently a football player, moved back from East Central. And then we had a young man that came in from Ohio, is my understanding. So we've added some depth to that class. You know, we don't get a whole lot of move-ins here in Connersville. We had a young man move back into our 8th grade class, about 6'3" or 6'4" this summer as well. So, you know, I spent a lot of time with our kids 5th through 12th grade. You know, I don't get into the lower grades as much, but, you know, I think we've got good solid groups coming all the way through. And, you know, by the time they get to be seniors, you know, like last year, there's just 2 of them left. But, you know, normally you have somewhere between 2 and 4, 5, or 6 kids left in a class. So, but I like the classes that we have coming up through our system. I think there's some good things to come. I don't think the well's going to be dry.
Right, right.
What about your coaching staff? Everybody going to be back? Any changes?
No changes.
Good.
JD's going to come back as varsity assistant. Chris Bottomley will be back as our junior varsity coach. Timmy Howard's our freshman coach. And then we have 2 young men that are our volunteer assistants, Zach Ray and Cody Smith. And both of those guys do a great job. And they split time between the varsity and the JV. And I think actually one of those guys may have even covered for Coach Silcott last year. He couldn't get off work for a Saturday tournament. And I think one of them may have coached the Saturday tournament for him at some point in time. But, you know, they're just all in it for, you know, whatever I ask them to do and what will benefit the program. And usually I use them with the varsity JV, but they'll do whatever's asked of them.
In your middle school, as you mentioned, Coach Silcott, he coaches middle school.
And we have the same staff back there. We have Chris Silcott, Chris Bloom, Brian Munchell, and John Reynolds. So it's good to have continuity. And we've had very little turnover in the 8 years that I've been here, and I think that lends itself to, you know, the same terminology and the same system and teaching the kids the same thing. So I think there's something to be said for that, that continuity and
very important.
Not having to, you know, you still have to keep coaching your coaches, but it's maybe not quite as much as, you know, if you start all over, if you got brand new staff.
And you try to catch those games when you can?
Yes, I try. It's a busy time during the winter. I actually see our middle school kids more when we do our camp in the summertime, and then I think I was at every middle school game this summer, with the exception of one day when I was with the varsity and they were playing down at Hanover team camp. So, you know, I see them quite a bit in those short time periods.
Sure. All sports tickets are available, I think, at the Spartan Athletic office. I'm sure Brent Duncan would be happy to take care of your request.
I think he's probably just waiting for people to come out and take him up on that.
Kerry, I want to thank you for taking time out from, we know you're a busy guy and everything, and Sam and I appreciate you stopping by to help us out on the program this evening, talk a little bit of basketball, football, and all the sports around CHS, senior high school, and middle school. Thank you.
Good to be here, guys. Thank you.
Glad to have you.
Sam, bring home a winner Friday.
Okay. All right. Remember, tune in. Dave will have the play-by-play, and we'll be on at 6:45 on KMX 106.9.
Franklin County and the Spartans from Franklin County. Thanks for watching the Spartan Sports Report here on TV3.